beachfront villa, her face twisted in a mix of pure shock and blinding rage. Beside her in the passenger seat, my sister Chloe was hysterical, tears ruining her expensive makeup as she screamed, "Why does she get everything? It's not fair." I just stood on my sun-drenched balcony, holding a warm cup of coffee, watching their psychological collapse unfold on my driveway. 5 years ago, these were the exact same women who threw my bags onto the sidewalk. My mother had looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're just wasting space here, Fiona. We need your room for Chloe's new corporate headquarters." They gave Chloe a cool $1 million to fund her dream business, while leaving me with nothing. But tables turn, greed rots, and today, they finally realized who the real boss was. My name is Fiona, and I am 29 years old. For as long as I can remember, my existence in my own family was defined not by who I was, but by what I could do for my younger sister, Chloe. Chloe was the golden child, a fragile porcelain doll who grew up believing the world owed her a living just for breathing. I, on the other hand, was the family's scapegoat, the quiet, fiercely independent daughter who worked 2 jobs in college just to pay for my own textbooks. The boiling point arrived during a seemingly ordinary Sunday dinner. The air in the dining room felt heavy, thick with a strange, rehearsed excitement. My mother cleared her throat, her eyes shining as she looked at Chloe, before turning a cold, clinical gaze toward me. "Fiona," she announced, her voice flat and devoid of any warmth. "We've made a family decision. We are liquidating your remaining college fund and pulling the savings space we set aside for your future. Chloe has a brilliant vision for a luxury lifestyle brand, and she needs capital." I sat frozen as my father pushed a check across the table. It was for a cool $1 million. Chloe squealed, clutching the paper to her chest, her eyes gleaming with arrogant triumph. When I tried to speak, to ask how they could completely wipe out my safety net for a vague startup idea, my mother cut me off with a wave of her hand. To them, my hard work was invisible, and my sister's unearned fantasy was the only thing that mattered. The morning after that devastating dinner, the final blow descended. I was in my room, trying to study through a fog of anxiety, when my mother marched in with a stack of empty cardboard boxes. She didn't look at me. She just began sweeping my books off the desk. "Pack your things, Fiona," she said, her voice dripping with icy finality. I stared at her, completely paralyzed. "What are you talking about, Mom?" She stopped, looking at me as if I were a mild inconvenience. "Chloe needs this entire floor for her new corporate headquarters and content creation studio. You're just wasting space here, Fiona. You're an adult. Go figure it out." Within 2 hours, my entire life was reduced to 4 trash bags piled onto the cold concrete sidewalk. Chloe watched from the porch, sipping a latte, a smug smile dancing on her lips as my mother locked the front door behind me. I stood there alone, the heavy silence echoing in my ears, realization dawning on me that I no longer had a family. Before I went down below the city or country you are watching from, so I can see how far my survival story has reached. I threw the bags into the back of my battered car, gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, and drove away. I didn't cry. Instead, a dangerous, burning resolve took root in my chest. They wanted my space? Fine. I was going to go out and build a world so big it would dwarf their entire existence. I cut all contact that very afternoon. I blocked their numbers, deleted my social media accounts, and vanished into the digital grid like a ghost. I had exactly $82 to my name and nowhere to sleep, but I refused to let the weight of their betrayal crush me. For the first 6 months, my life was a relentless cycle of survival. I worked a grueling shift at a local diner by day and spent my nights sleeping on a friend's faded corduroy couch, using my old laptop under the dim glow of a single floor lamp. While my sister Chloe was busy throwing lavish launch parties with our parents' money, I was quietly studying an untapped, highly lucrative niche in automated digital real estate marketing and tech consulting. I didn't have room for failure. Every single cent I earned from the diner was funneled directly into building my software prototype. I survived on instant noodles and pure, unadulterated grit. Within 2 years, my small consulting hustle caught the attention of a major corporate developer. The contract they signed with me changed everything. From there, my trajectory exploded. I went from a desperate girl with trash bags on a sidewalk to the chief executive officer of a rapidly growing tech firm. I hired engineers, scaled my operations internationally, and watched my bank account grow into figures I used to think were typographical errors. 5 years of agonizing execution, sleepless nights, and absolute silence finally paid off. I didn't buy flashy sports cars or throw media parties. Instead, I took a portion of my hard-earned multi-million-dollar capital and made a cash purchase on an exclusive, private beachfront villa nestled high on the Northern California coastline. It was a masterpiece of glass and steel, a monument to my resilience, and a space that belonged completely to me. It was through a mutual old acquaintance from our hometown that I finally uncovered what had become of my family during my years of radio silence. As it turned out, the universe has a poetic way of balancing the scales when greed takes the driver's seat. Chloe's highly publicized luxury lifestyle brand had been nothing more than an expensive illusion built on vanity and zero business acumen. Instead of focusing on product development or sustainable logistics, my sister had burned through the entire $1 million investment in less than 18 months. She wasted it on high-end office aesthetics, luxury travel, and throwing massive parties for influencers who vanished the moment the money ran dry. When the initial capital evaporated, Chloe didn't stop. She dragged our parents down with her, convincing them to remortgage their family home to fund her mounting debts and desperate cover-ups. The entire operation ultimately collapsed under the weight of terrible financial mismanagement and legal threats from angry suppliers. The parents' beautiful house was saved from foreclosure only by a thread, leaving them drowning in high-interest debt. My parents were completely bankrupt, their retirement savings entirely wiped out to protect their favorite daughter from public humiliation. Chloe's corporate headquarters, the very bedroom I had been thrown out of because I was wasting space, was now just a dark room filled with unsold inventory. Completely broke Chloe had no choice but to humble herself, moving back into her parents' small, stressful household, utterly ruined and defeated by her own arrogance. The universe finally brought our paths rushing back together on a brilliant, cloudless Tuesday afternoon. My mother and Chloe were driving up the northern coast, desperately traveling to meet a low-tier private investor who represented their absolute last hope of escaping financial ruin. Unfamiliar with the exclusive coastal neighborhood, my mother took a wrong turn, taking a scenic route that wound directly through an ultra-wealthy enclave of multi-million-dollar estates. Lost and visibly frustrated, she pulled her battered sedan over to the side of the road right next to a magnificent, ultra-modern beachfront villa to look up map directions on her phone. I happened to be stepping out onto my second-story glass balcony at that exact moment, carrying a fresh cup of morning coffee and enjoying the crisp ocean breeze. As I leaned against the sleek railing, I looked down and immediately recognized the vehicle idling by my driveway gates. Through the clear glass windows of the car, I watched the exact jaw-dropping moment of recognition unfold. My mother's phone slipped from her hand, landing on the dashboard as her mouth fell open in complete, paralyzed disbelief. Beside her, Chloe sat frozen, her eyes wide as saucers as she stared up at the massive glass facade, then at the manicured gardens, and finally, directly at me. The absolute shock on their pale faces was palpable. The daughter they had thrown out onto the sidewalk like garbage, the girl they claimed was nothing but a waste of space, was now standing on the balcony of the most expensive and breathtaking estate on the entire coastline. The heavy silence inside their car shattered instantly into a chaotic storm of pure psychological destruction. Chloe completely lost her mind, thrashing against her seatbelt and slamming her hands against the leather dashboard as she screamed the words that echoed all the way up to my balcony. Why does she get everything? It's not fair. She was supposed to be nothing. Her voice cracked with a hysterical blend of envy and deep humiliation. My mother, recovering from her initial shock, quickly threw the car into park and stepped out onto the asphalt, her eyes frantically surveying my high-end vehicles parked in the courtyard. In a matter of seconds, I watched her twisted expression morph into a manipulative, sickeningly sweet, motherly persona. She walked right up to the heavy security intercom speaker by the iron gates, her voice trembling but dripping with synthetic warmth as she called out to me. Fiona? Oh my goodness, sweetie. Is that really you? She called out, flashing a desperate, trembling smile toward the balcony. Look at you. We have been looking for you for years, darling. We missed you so much. Chloe and I were just driving past, and we couldn't believe our eyes. Can you please open the gates and let us come inside? We need to sit down, put the past behind us, and finally reconnect as a family. She stood there clutching her cheap handbag, waiting for the gates to click open, completely convinced her old emotional manipulation would still work. I leaned in close to the balcony microphone, my finger resting firmly on the intercom button. My voice echoed across the concrete driveway, cool, detached, and utterly unshakable. You aren't welcome here, Mom, I said smoothly. 5 years ago, you stood in my bedroom and told me I was just wasting space before throwing my life into trash bags. I took your advice. I went out, figured it out, and built a space that belongs completely to me. You liquidated my future for Chloe's vanity, and now you have to live with the empty inventory of that choice. I released the button, turning my back on their desperate shouts. Through the security cameras, I watched my mother walk slowly back to the car, her head bowed in absolute defeat, while Chloe wept uncontrollably into her hands. They drove away into the coastal fog, returning to the crushing mountain of debt and the small house they had brought upon themselves. Now, I'm curious about you who listened to my story. What would you do if you were in my place? Would you have opened those iron gates? Or would you have left them on the sidewalk just like they did to you? And they will definitely surprise you. Thank you.